morning to you, Kaya Mbugeli, Kusile Breakfast Show. It is Health Wednesday. Lapho khona ke sikhulumisa tindzaba tetempilo lomhla elihlelweni. I'm with the lovely Lungelele Makakula as per usual. Ngibusele Thombeni.
Nguni, I'm well. How are you this morning?
Doing very well, Naming Pilile.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for joining us. And Vusela Nanamakaya. Sabanga ukuthi nikhethe vukanati lo mhlehlile nekusile breakfast show. Dinge amashumi lamabili na kwenye 21 June 2023. Sisele nje malanga long 194 ukuthi sifike eminyakeni wa 2024. Good morning and welcome. Njengoba sashito mlingana wami ukuthi namhla sibuka donatindzaba tetempilo sidabe sikhulumisana na Health Promotion Officer Calvin Dlamini. Sitakumela usitawubona sitawunosisela ukuthi kunemkhuhlane that is going around kulamalanga abantu abaningi badikhanza sebane flu ema symptoms afakhona ke kukhwehlela kuvimbana ama normal flu symptoms nje so sifuna ukukhulumisana nabelitiko letempilo kuva ukuthi siba worried yini sikhathateke yini could it be covid sokusho ukuthi sale siphoceleleka ukuthi sifake ama face mask yini yinde kumele siyende kahle kahle sifuna kuva kibo belitiko letempilo ukuthi yinde kumele siyende ukuthi iphephisa kulomkhuhlane dokumlombule ukuthi labanye baye bathathe ama flu shots ngaphambi kokuthi kuqale yona i-season ye-winter labanye bayastima labanye basebenzisa ama-supplements labanye badla timvule tehlukahlukene ukuze manje ukuthi ivikela kuwo umkhuhlane silabe sikhulumisana na Calvin kuva abantu ukuthi ingabe litiko selibonile ukuthi vele abantu abaningi banemkhuhlane lo matima kakhulu sifuna kuva ukuthi ingabe singathi phephisa kanjani kulomkhuhlane silabe sikhulumisana naye ngafa 7 omhlekeni.
Kanti-ke sitaphinze sijoyinwe ngu-Dr. Deluleko Maseko lochamuka lapha ku-National Cancer Control Unit kukhulumisa indzaba-ke lenkhulu lechubekako yekujobiswa-ke umjovo i-vaccination ye-HPV vaccine. Msebenzi-ke lona lophakame ngalokusemthethweni evikini leliphelile lapho khona sibone inkosikazi Makela Mathebula gracing the official launch of this savor of a vaccination medicine, rather injection. Seke malanga lomuhla nje hlanganisa 8 days, in fact 7 days lapho khona belitiko letempilo baveta lokusobala ukuthi bafuna ukuthi bacede lamuhla about 80,000 of our young girls in and out of schools lokubheke ukuthi ke babe bayitfolele vaccine lo muhla baveta ke lokho ukuthi itawuba in 2 doses, second dose letawuba after a period of 6 months. Dr. Deluleko Maseko utasichazela kabanti ekutheni some of the myths bantu bebanawo on social media nekhathatheka nje kwebatali bebanako umjovo usengakaqali ukuthi kukhona imvelela abahlangabedene nato leto dimo leto nekusichazela ukuthi ihambe kanjani the whole exercise sukela evikini leliphelele njengoba ke kubhekeke ukuthi uphethe lo muhla lo emsebenzi loyo tasichazela abantu ukuthi the whole exercise ihambe kanjani lo mhla kuseni half-past 6.
All right, it's 10 minutes after 6 before we take a break so sibuke my news headlines lo mhla kuseni. Welcome back. Siyakuvusela sikumukele ehleleni kusile breakfast show sesibuke nje ihloko ethamba embili kumaphephandaba ethu lo mhla kuseni. Sicela ngayi Times of Eswatini indzaba leyo ehamba embili i-headline yalo liphephandaba cops kidnap us in SA kusho Thabo. Antsikelenye lehamba embili senators ERS come hard on finance PS for late payments. Lenye lehamba embili 3 Eswatini women on porn site exposed. Kanti lenye lehamba embili cops called after King's portrait removed. My news headlines at Times of Eswatini front page.
Temidlalo khona ephepheni le Times of Eswatini lehamba embili kakhulu indzaba ukuthi ke Ezulwini United ithi siyabonga Thubembe. Kanti ke manje sichubeka nato siyabona ukuthi Yaya Tore lo assistant manager we Standard League nayo indzaba leyo lehamba embili kutemidlalo. Kanti ke lo mhla kuseni cishe nje lethamba embili sinalethi chamuka ephephandzabeni Times of Eswatini kuphela dingakho.
Right, 4 minutes after 6 tabahlete market nasibuya sithatha indzaba tetfu eSwati ngayindzawo.
umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eveni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letenteka ngaleso sikhatsi tindzaba letide emagama laqosheme letitsembekile letitsintsa tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni
kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhatsi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulo msakato siphindze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letiqhamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba lowutiletselwa ngumsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Asipenze sinimukele sakuvusela nawo losonza kuzivulela nathi tindzaba. Lipini landvuna nkulu Themba Masuku selikhuthaze eMaswati ukuthi angagcini njengekubhalisela lukhetho kuphela kodwa asukume ngebuningi bawo noma sekuvotwa kude lonke liswati libe nelivi ekwakheni live. Masuku bekakhuluma kulandzela ukuthi kwephethe isigaba sekubhalisa lapha kubhalise khona sive.
Ibandla letelukhetfo nemincele yetinkundla i-Elections and Boundaries Commission EBC lithi kulesigaba semalanga lamane bekengetiwe ekubhalisa kubhalise eMaswati langetulu kwetinkulungwane letingemashumi 40,000. Liphinda ndvunankulu Themba Masuku lidvumise inshisekelo yaso sive yekufuna kungasali nakwakhiwa live. Uthe eMaswati akangagcini ngekubhalisa kuphela kepha akaphindze aphume ngebuningi bawo nanoma sekuvotwa ngenyanga yengci.
Siyakhuthaza nje eMaswati ukuthi akahambe angathi ngoba sesibhalisile sahlala phansi nathi angabhalisa besathi sesiyoqedzela ngekukhetha. Ngithi ke my elections enta ukuthi produce bantu labatafike basebentele njengalo sibonile la ucabanga umgwaco se 51% wemgwaco legazette tinesikontiela kusaqhubeka futhi.
Liphinda ndvunankulu lincuse sive ukuthi sithuthukiswe ukukhethwa kwabomake bamfula basha kanye nalabo labakhubatekile. Etindzabeni eSwatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza Sembabane.
Tibonakala tinyuka tinombolote bakhoseli labangena kuleli. Commissioner yabakhoseli Zanele Mlambo uthi tandla tivulekile kwemukela abakhoseli kodwa kuyaqinisekiswa ukuthi timphepha tekuhlala kwabo eveni tisemthethweni.
Usuku lwabakhoseli lugujwa njalo ngeminyaka mhla tingamashumi 20 enyangeni yenhlaba. Bakhoseli basuka emaveni abo ngetizavu letahlukahlukene ngifaka ekhatsi timphi naletinyeke timo letibasusako. Sicubo selusuku lwabakhoseli salonyaka sithi lithemba khashane nasekhaya pheceleti hope away from home. Commissioner wabakhoseli kuleli Zanele Mlambo uthi babone kwanza kwabakhoseli labangena kuleli.
Lesinawo according to database yethu laba registered ba around 2.4. Shothi ke kufaka labo lasebavele basipholile le status sekuba ngumrefugee nalabo labasafake isicelo. So labanye bahlala incumbi yabo bahlala eMalinza reception center where sinaw lesba hostile laba close to 500.
Libandla lelitiko letasekhaya lebelihamba nalobekamelele mbasado wemava labamhlophe balayelwe impilo yabakhoseli empaka refugee camp netidzingo tabo. Hulumende ke wondla labanye labali-120 ngelilanga kuyona le refugee camp kuteka bativele basekhaya. Robert Adams wayo lenhlangano ya-European Union uthi basetawubuka ukuthi bangababambisa kudiphi inhlangothi khona-ke empaka refugee camp.
We are committed to assist them and also to assist refugees globally and helping them enjoy their basic human rights.
Uhulumende uyabanaka abakhoseli ngaphandle kwelibandlululo kanike uyaqinisekisa ukuthi bantwana bayaya etikolweni bakhoseli bayawathola emathuba ebhizinisi nekusebenta bangavaleleki ngaphandle. Etindzabeni ngengiyani Msibingi Nasimuva Shongwe eMpaka.
Inhlangano yaka-Water8 seyivala emahhovisi lophawula ukuhamba kwayo lapha eveni ngenyanga yeMphala kulo mnyaka. Umcondzisi wale nhlangano kuleli incamiso mhlanga uthi le nhlangano isukumise tinhlelo tokuletha imali lahlobile esiveni letibita tigidzi letingamakhulu 200 million amalangeni kule minyaka lelishumi le nhlangano yefika Eswatini.
Inhlangano yaka-Water8 ifike kuleli ngeminyaka wa-2012 lapho ibambise uhulumende etinhlelweni letinyenti tekuletha imali lahlobile esiveni ikakhulukade etindzaweni letisemakhaya lekungumanje sivele singetulu kwetinkulungwane letilikhulu nemashumi lasihlanu 150,000 sinatha imali lahlobile ngaphansi kwetinhlelo tale nhlangano. Umcondzisi wale nhlangano kuleli incamiso mhlanga uthi letinhlelo tisukunyiswe kule nhlangano tawuchutshwa nguhulumende naletinye tinhlangano kude live lichubeke nekuletha imali lahlobile esiveni seMaswati.
Water8 sohlanganisa iminyaka lelishumi asebenza eveni laKangwane sekufika isikhathi lapho khona agucota khona umsebenzi wakhe. Water8 ke simbonile asebenza eveni imsebenzile eminengi kufaka imali etikolweni kufaka imali etibhedlela kufaka imali emimangweni. Sisebenzile ma projects lamanengi ikakhulu ama projects ethu lesiwendile afocuse kakhulu esifundzeni saselubombo nakahoho nalamanye kakhona kamanzini but nje ngikhona la footprint yethu bekhona khona kakhulu sebenzile imisebenzi lemnengi in the excess of about investment in excess of about 200 million kusenjetwa kufakwa emandi etindzaweni letehlukahlukene.
Kule minyaka lelishumi lenhlangano lapha eveni yakhe ingodle letilikhulu nemashumi lasihlanu 150 yasukumisa naletinye tinhlelo tekuhlandeka nemandi lahlobile etikolweni emitfolampilo nasemimangweni letifaka ekhasi letilishumi nesihlanu temandi etingwedle agesi welilanga solar water systems. Etindzabeni yeSwatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza ngasikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Inhlangano yaka-Junior Achievement ithi bantfu labasha abanemicomvo yebhizinisi lemihle nalekhonsile lengathuthukisa live uma yesekeleke kahle. Lokuvete ngilobukete kumaketha nekuchumana kule nhlangano Siphesihle Mkhonda ngesikhathi le nhlangano ibambe umcimbi wokwesekela abantu labasha ngetimali business shower.
Inhlangano yaka-Junior Achievement ihlanganise bantfu labasha lababosomabhizinisi labalikhulu nemashumi lasihlanu kude bakhangise ngemicomvo yemabhizinisi abo kude basekeleke ngemali yekucala noma kutfutfukisa leyo bhizinisi. Lobukete kumaketha netekuchumana kule nhlangano Siphesihle Mkhonda uthi imicondvo yalabantfu labasha iyakhutsata iyakhomba nekuthi live liyatfutfuka ngemicondvo yebhizinisi.
Uyukhanze ukuthi bantwana bakhona ifika kubo youth fund abakhona ifika kubo FinCorp ngalokuthi abanato ti-structure tekweni amabhizinisi abo abanako tindwendwe letawo basukumisa ukuthi bawendela amabhizinisi kanze mathuba etimali akhona. So le business shower njengalo besishide ukuthi sithi umana nakaqala indvo lenhle phela simnanatele njengalo sibenda abo baby shower sibenda abo bridal shower kodwa nje before bakwende konke itolo baqale kwaba nema business lectures babakhulumisa ke partner bethu ukuthi nawe ndi presentation yini lebhekekile. Namuhla nje laba baka UNDP bayafundiswa ngema UN developmental goals ngoba nangabe utawenda ibusiness ufundwa nge-UN kufanele kube khona igoal lotimatanisa nayo. So kuleli viki nje kusukela lamhla kuze kube ngilesine sidabe sisenta lama presentations.
Ngalesihlanu kubhekeke ukuthi le nhlangano ihlomelise bantfu labasha labangamashumi lamathatfu nemfica 39 labahamba embili ngemicomvo labatawusekelwa ngetinkhulungwane letilishumi temalangeni 10,000 somabhizinisi amunye. Etindzabeni yeSwatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza ngasikhumbuzo Dlamini kaManzini.
Liteko letemcebo waphansi nemandla lihlangene netinhlangothi letehlukene ukubhala kabusha luhlaka lomnyaka wa 2024-2028 lwetindzaba te-atomic power naletinye.
Lebesinayo besibuka ukuthi nuclear and radiation safety lokusho ukuthi umthetho lobuka lethu ukuthi nangabe mhlawumbe umuntu sekabe exposed ku nuclear radiation wentiwa njani. Sibuka ke agriculture nje besine project yema cowpeas sabana lenye i project yema fruit flies. Yama fruit fly yaphela ke itakuze icalele phansi kafishane dithelo nje letfaka bo mangoes kwekuthi nase uvunile ungumlimi kukhona lo ngakufaka lokwenda kwekuthi le lesihlava lokuthiwa i-fruit fly sikhone ukuthi singasabi nendalo yekhona kudala lokunye lokusho ukuthi lo mangoza wakho so double preserve akhona ukuthi athengiseke kahle emarket so besinayo ke naleyo project sibe nalamanye ke nalamanye ama projects la ficus zoonotic diseases leto tifo letithathelwanako kubantu nasedilwaneni so lapha ke bayasita la bekunene ukuthi sikhone ukuthi ihlola ukuthi lesifo sikhona la sitokhona ukuthi bese sesiyasilapha kanjalo nabo energy planning siyabuka ukuthi njengoba sinenkinga nge-energy security singayisebenzisa ne-nuclear kusita.
Maphoyisa asekabuthethe inkomo letilishumi nesithupha letitfolakale emangweni leselibonjeni ngaphansi kwehlelo lokususa imfuyo emgwaqweni ihlobisa operation lochumanisa sive nalombutfo superintendent Phindile Vilakati uthi live lilahlekelwa ngulokunyenti ngemfuyo lebasemgwaqweni lokufaka ekhatsi imphefumulo.
Singemaphoyisa sibukile ukuthi silahlekelwa imiphefumulo silinyalelwe impahla lokuyimoto kulimale nayo imigwaco ngakho kungena kwemfuyo ekhatsi emgwaqweni sivakashile ke kulamalanga laphelile kakhulu kati elibonjeni savakashela imiphakathi savakashela emadidi kuyokhulumisana naso sive ngikuthi bacaphele tinkhomo tingayi emigwaqweni kulandzela ke lokuthi sesike sabavakashela sakhulumisana sesiya enforce ke nyalo sisibuyele kuleto tindzawo kuyobuka ukuthi letinkhomo setisusiwe indvele kuyo imigwaco sihamba ke nelitiko laseworks letinkhomo nathi titfolakala vele etsekhatsi emgwaqweni siyatithatha si-operation hlobisa kuleli viki kusukela leviki leliphelile siyachubeka liviki lekugcina leli la operation hlobisa sitfoleka ukuthi tisekhonyana tinkhomo lapha nalapha sitibuthile kitolo nje sithethe tinkhomo leting-16 lebetithathwa kubomadlangambisi bonkambeni bomganwini nakubo Antioch siyachubeka kusicela sive ukuthi asitikhweshe setinkhomo kuze kuthi sive sikhone kuhamba ngekukhululeka siyati ukuthi imisebenzi leseta even imikhulu kakhulu minengi asingati khanzike sesibange tingoti ngekubeka tinkhomo tethu emgwaqweni nangabe kwentekile wathola ukuthi tinkhomo takho tithethwe la emgwaqweni uyayibese uyaya estation semaphoyisa lesithutane nawe batokusita ukuthi uthole ukuthi tinkhomo takho tigcinwe kusiphi isikidi la kuyaye bese kuba netindleko ke lophinze utibhadarele uphinze futhi ubhekane nelicala ke nasenkantolo tekuthi uyekelele tinkhomo takho utaya emgwaqweni kufuna uhlawule lelo cala uphinze ubhadarele leso sikidi la betigcinwe khona tinkhomo.
Tishela lobuketi ifundvo temculo ekolishi Ingwane Teachers College Steve Hadebe uthi buhle bekufundisa ngemakhono i-competency based education kwenda umfundzi abe nelithandvo lalelikhono kanti kuyayivula nengcondo yemphana wesikolo. Hadebe bekhuluma emncintiswaneni yokuhlabelela kuleli kolishi.
Hulumende wasukumisa luhlelo lwemfundvo etamakhono etikolweni i-competency based education. Lendlela lena yekufundza ikhutsata kutsi umntfwana alolongwe aphindze aphumelele ngelikhono lanalo. Tishela lobuketi ifundvo temculo eNgwane Teachers College Steve Hadebe utsina kucela umnyaka bacale bafundzisa abantfwana besikolo kutsi lo mculo emakwala amakhulu i-choral uhlabelwa njani babese babanika isikhatsi sekuthi bawufunze nekutsi kubhekeke bawuhlabele kanjani.
Sineke silikolege la ka-music sibabonile abantwana labawufundzile umusic lakithi mase baphumele ngaphandle sebangama-artist siyababona bayakhokha tingoma tabo setiyathengwa siyababona bayamenywa emcimbini lethile through nabo labo basuke bakutfolile la college. Lokunye lokuhle ngale syllabus ngilapho khona umntwana labona khona ukuthi awu nginelikhono lelihle kanje labanye beta lana bangathi ukuthi awu ngingahlabela after sesibafundisile thina ukuthi mawuhlabela wena kanje mawuhlabela lokho kuyentiwa lokho akwentiwa ukhanze ukuthi labanye vele ngalokho lesibafundisa kona sebadiscuss ukuthi awu mayevele lento imnanzi but ikhanze sebajone kulamanye amakwala amakhulu noma nako sebaqale abe emakwaya ngalokuthi sebanale patience abanalothando lwalesifundo abantwana bafundza kuba innovative baba creative bakhetha ingoma tema folk song letimnanzi umangala ukuthi lo muntu nabe ngathi usinetalent elihle kanje abantu bajabule kuba mnanzi umculo.
Hadebe uqhubeke wacela kutsi litiko letemfundvo liqhubeke nemihlangano sikolwa wekufundzisa bothishela ngalelu hlelo lwe-CBE kude wonke agcine anelwati lolungilo kutsi kubhekeke afundzise njani. Lobika-ke Ndzabeni Eswatini TV nguThando Kuhle Mdluli ngisenhlangano.
Lobuketi indzaba tehlelo email engagement eshiselweni mazwi mnisi lelichutshwa inhlangano yahulumende yeNature uthi bobabe badivela abasalela ngaphandle etinhlelweni leticondzana nebulili lokugcine sekwakha sihlulu kulabanye. Mnisi bekhuluma emhlanganweni weNature naletinye inhlangano.
Inkampani yahulumende iNature ichuba luhlelo lwe-male engagement lapho bafundzisa bobabe nemajaha labaneminyaka lesuka ku-15 kuya ku-40 ngetindzaba teligciwane kulokunye. Lelu hlelo selihambele etinkundleni letisiphohlongo eshiselweni. Lobuke lelu hlelo eshiselweni mazwi mnisi uthi lenye tinkinga lesebatikhandzile kutsi labanye bantfu labadvuna bebangakafundziseki ngetinhlobo tekuhlukumeta.
Most of the issues la khona emanate from the fact that kuvakala ngazuthi bobabe noma kubafana labasebancane basalela emuva when it comes to tindzaba tabo HIV nekufundiseka kabanti emimangweni. Lokhu bese sokwenda ke ukuthi kube nesithozi bobabe ukuthi nabo phela abathole lokutinsita lokuchama etinhlanganweni ukuthi bakhona nabo kwakha tinhlangano tabo babe bakhona ukuthi bafundiseke ngabo HIV ukuze ukuthi nabo babe nelwati lelwanele ukuthi bativikele ku HIV.
Lobuke tindzaba takaNature eshiselweni noThando Msibi sewuchaze ticelo letiyetivetwe bobabe nemajaha nabasachuba lelu hlelo.
Kuyavela ukuthi bobabe bayalidzinga lolusito lwetemphilo sekuthi beva ngathi abakhona lokho etibhedlela ngalo setibhedlela kuba nemalayini lamadze lekufuna baweme kanti bobabe leNature yabo nje bayehluleka kumasikhathi lesithi so bona bebacela vele ukuthi kungathi ema-partners la khona esifundzeni angamane abasonzitele letinsita tetemphilo tibe dvutane lesingathi phecelete mhlawumbe ngema-mobile clinics lapho khona abantu abalethela endzaweni thile mhlawumbe emsebentini bese bayakhona bona ku-access ama-services.
Sebangema-76 bobabe nemajaha lesebafundzisiwe kulelu hlelo lwe-male engagement. Lobika-ke endzabeni yeSwatini TV nguThando Kuhle Mdluli ngisenhlangano.
Kutemidlalo umqeqeshi olikhethelo lesive Sihlangu semnikati Dominic Kunene uthi kuningi nabakufundzile emidlalweni wabo nethogo lapho bakhale khona phansi ngemagoli amabili ecandzeni. Kunene uthi lokho labakufundzile utokusebentisa asayenze beni yekhosafa enyangeni letako.
Sihlangu semnikati sikhale phansi emidlalweni waso nethogo ngephansi kwemidlalo yekuhlungela indzebe ye-AFCON iminyaka lotako lapho sikhale phansi ngemagoli amabili ecandzeni. Kude ke sikhatsi sekukhotha emanceba njengaloku live liyongenela imidlalo yekhosafa lecala kwenyangeni letako. Umqeqeshi weSihlangu Dominic Kunene uthi kuningi lakufundzile kulomdlalo lasuka kuye kepha-ke kutamsita asachubekela embili nalendzebe yekhosafa kanti-ke uthi utobona ukuthi ubaphumuta njani badlali bakhe.
Kunenge bathize lamavele bezana ubheka likhulu ne-space esincane usivulako bayasisebenzisa lecabanga ukuthi kube kuyihlanhla lempilo ukuthi ebholweni sonke isikhathi ufunza ngetinyembezi. Ngicabanga ukuthi sinabo bodokotela batasilekelela lokho ukuthi nathi sitakusebenzisa lesakufunza ukubona lokuthi sibalekelela njani kude ukuthi barecover befike ku-tournament bangilapha kahle. Isifiso sethu bekulokokuthi kungabi nale break maintainer the fitness level sebayitholile. Yes bayadzinga ukurefresha ndlela dzide but singayivuli kakhulu le game because kutabe kusho ukucalela phasi.
Kunene ukhetha-ke kuchubeka nalabo badlali bekavela sebenza nabo babheke ukuthi bachubeke nekutilolonga kusukela ngalesithathu kulona leliviki elisetulu. Sihlangu sitodlala umdlalo waso wekucala nelive leBotswana mhla tisi-5 enyangeni yenhlaba lendzebe icala mhla tisi-5 kuya kumhla tili-18. Lobekela umsakato we-Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathiswe Msibi Embabane.
24 minutes after 6 tephetha lapho tindzaba tethu lomhla teSiswati simakho kuhlala nathi tabahlala temakethe nasibuya sicibeka nehlelo asinishini simo selitulo.
Bukela luhlelo embili kanye kanye njalo ngeSonto ngensimbi yesithupha kusihlwa lapho sixoxa kabanti nalabati ngetindzaba tenhlalakahle, temnotfo netentfutfuko. Lolu hlelo luveta luphindze lukhulumise-ke imitsetfo, tinhlelo nemigomo yahulumende letfutfukisa ke sive seMaswati. Luveta ematfuba netisombululo letiletsa-ke inchubekela phambili esiveni. Embili kanye kanye, makubete-ke Liswati lelisalela emuva live lisachubekela entfutfukweni leKhonsile.
WHO recently launched 2 reports on violence against children, including online violence. We are going to talk today about how to recognize the signs of violence and how to prevent it. Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. We are talking to Sabine Rakoto Malala. Welcome, Sabine. Talk to us about violence against children. What do we mean when we say that?
The numbers around violence against children are shocking and unacceptable. We know today that 1 in every 2 children aged 2 to 17 have suffered from sexual violence or physical violence or emotional violence in the past year. That's 1 out of every 2 children in the world. We also know that 1 out of 5 girls is sexually abused before the age of 18, and 1 out of 13 boys is sexually abused before the age of 18. Again, these numbers are shocking and unacceptable. So the physical impacts, such as deaths and injuries, are terrible. However, there's also lifelong consequences that come with violence in childhood. We know that children that have suffered violence will suffer from more mental health disorders, such as depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. These children also are more at risk of engaging in risky behaviors, such as smoking, alcohol consumption, drug consumption, unsafe sex. These in turn lead to non-communicable diseases, such as cancers and cardiovascular diseases. And we also know that children that suffered violence in childhood are more likely to become perpetrators of violence later in life.
Sabine, can you talk to us about online violence?
So online violence is a real problem. And when we look at online violence, we're really looking at cyberbullying and sexual violence online. There are a number of important initiatives today collecting data about this global online problem. However, there are 2 important myths that need to be clarified. The first one is that violence is committed by strangers, otherwise known as stranger danger. In fact, we know that most of the online cyberbullying is happening by peers, acquaintances, family members. So these are the situations that we have to look out for. The second myth that needs to be clarified is that online violence is a problem on its own. In fact, in most cases, it's linked to face-to-face violence happening in real life. So, for example, cyberbullying in 3/4 of the cases is also linked to bullying happening in the playground or in the community. Or children that are sexting are often in abusive relationship with intimate partners.
Sabine, if 1 in 2 children is suffering from violence, then it's happening all around us. How can we recognize the signs of this violence?
Common signs that may indicate child abuse include, for example, unexplained injuries, fractures, or burns, children's behavior that changes, for example, becoming very withdrawn and socially isolated, or becoming very aggressive and violent. We also see children suddenly changing their hygiene, showing poor hygiene, children having a decrease in academic performance, and also, of course, young children below the age of 12 that are suddenly carrying sexually transmitted diseases. It's important to note that these signs on their own are not definite signs of child abuse. However, if you do have these concerns, please do report them to health workers, social workers, or your school workers.
Sabine, talk to us about how teachers, neighbors, grown-ups in the community can prevent this.
So for parents, caregivers, teachers, really anyone who's in contact with children, protecting them should be a top priority. Myself, I'm a parent of 3 children. They're aged 16, 14, and 10, and I follow 4 key pieces of evidence-based advice. The first one is open communication with your children. If you can establish that open communication, the day that your child is suffering from something, he or she will be more likely to come to you. The second one is establishing clear rules. This includes, for example, curfews, structuring your day, but more importantly, knowing always where your child is in terms of the rules. Thirdly, teaching your children about consent and personal body safety. This is important at all ages, 4 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old, 18 years old. And lastly, actively participating in your child's life. Again, if you're involved in your child's life, you will know when he or she is changing his or her behavior and is possibly showing signs of trouble.
So to summarize, the way we can keep our children safe is through education, vigilance, communication, and having a strong relationship with them. Thank you very much, Sabine. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then. Bye-bye.
Minutes after 6 asiphindze sikwamukele ehlelweni kwalelo muhle Kusile breakfast show njengoba-ke besishilo naqala lihlelo ukuthi sidaba nabo labaqhamuka ka-National Cancer Control Unit kulandzelela-ke ukuthi belitiko letempilo bacala umsebenzi lomkhulu ekujova abantwana labancane labangemantombazane esikolweni ngemjovo ye-HPV vaccine. Lo msebenzi-ke uphakanyiswe ngalokhu semthethweni inkhosikati Makela Amathebula evikini leliphelile uhlose ukunciphisa amathuba ekuvela kwamdlavuza womlomo wesibeletho i-human papilloma virus vaccine. Lo mjovo wesekela inhlelo tahulumende wengwenyama tekulwane kwanza kwamdlavuza wemlomo wesibeletho kuleli. Dr. Deleko Maseko joins us now. Kusipha sithombe ekutheni lo hlelo luhambe njani nje solo luphakanyisiwe evikini leliphelile. Camane sikuvusele ihlelweni lomuhle.
Sivusela kwemsakade sivusele kini nonke balaleli emakhaya nalani khona khona.
Camane sibonile umsebenzi osukunyiswa evikini leliphelile. Lapho khona sibone inkosikazi Makela Amathebula ihlangene nanini belitiko letempilo lababuke etoneni zabade cancer event. Sibone a lot of excitement from parents nabo bantu abesikolo sababona labanye bajova ngalolu suku lolo nje khathi phakanyiswa. Ngabe lo hlelo lihamba njani so far?
Ngibonga msakade njoba uyichaza ukuthi ulibonile ihlelo losukumisa inkosikazi Makela Amathebula elisasasa lisetulu batali babasayinela abantwana ama consent form kusiba khona kutfola lo mjovo lo lokugomisa ukuthi abantwana bathola umdlavuza womlomo wesibeletho. Sifuna nje sakubonga lokukhulu kubatali ukuthi inqubi yabo baya understand ukuthi le vaccine isebenza kuphi ya protecta kuphi abantwana ngoba nje ngeke sisuke silitiko letempilo suke sijove abantwana. Iyadingeka le mvume yemntali ukukhombisa ukuthi le consent ikhona from the parent side. Ngaloko sibonga kakhulu batali ukusibambisa kakhulu. So uqalile umkhankaso lisasasa likhulu kakhulu. Uqalile umkhankaso sabona tinombolo ticala tibancane kepha sesasingena emalangeni esibili esithathu hayi tinombolo betikhula ukukhombisa ukuthi batali baya understand ubumcoka bale vaccine. Nalokunye lokwenta khanda ukuthi batali baya understand kangcono. Ufake ekhathi ukuthi batali abanye sebababonile labanye tihlobo tabo noma abangane babo babulawa ngonomdlavuza womlomo wesibeletho. So bayawubona umcoka ukuthi kugomisa abantwana labaneminyaka le-9 ku-14 nontombazana kumcoka kangakanani. Kungako nje kushisho ukuthi cha luhlelo luhamba kahle kakhulu. Tikhona tona tihibe tincane tithithe leto kuthoka ama teething problems but nje tonke tisehlelweni ukuthi tikhona ukugomeka ukuthi kahle ukuthi sichubeke ihlelo.
Ngiyakhumbula ukuthi naliphamisa lo hlelo na project ukuthi nifuna abantwana plus or minus 80,000 both in and out of school. Naphindze naveta ukuthi ke lo hlelo liqhuba nje litaba around 7 days. Namuhla I believe it's the 7th day ngoba it was a Wednesday last week when Dr. Xoli makahleli nathi la. Kusipha nje sithombe ukuthi vele senihambe kangakanani nangabe nabeka lo 7 days, do you want to add more days looking at the number of schools tinombolo sethambe kangakanani vele?
Ngibonga kakhulu umsakazi uteka yona sibili vele litiko belibuke ukuthi litawungena etikolweni nemalanga lasikhombisa kuthe ke sesihlala sesisebenzini egroundini sabona ukuthi lisasasa liphakeme kakhulu ebantwaneni lokukhandla ukuthi bantwana sebaningi nalaba labagomako bonese ukhandla ukuthi sebayengameka ngale nombolo labantwana aseke selabona ke litiko ukuthi alingete emalanga lamathathu lokusho ukuthi lihlelo nje selitawuphela ngalesihlanu lokugomisa abantwana bagomisa namdlavuza umlomo esibeletho lamalanga lamathathu kusukela kusasa kuze bangalesihlanu sikubita kalokuthi yimo phapha so ukuthi labantwana labasele nakugonywa kulo 7 days so kubiyele emva kwaleti kodwa sekuphinde futhi kuyalandzelelwa kahle ukuthi abantwana bagomile inibombe ngoba labanye abantwana bokhanza ukuthi sebayavuma kanti abakayisayini consent form lokuba likhulu ukuthi lo mntana akavume ngemlomo sichubeke simgome lo mfana siyadinga vele ukuthi akomite asayini so kanti abantwana sibanikele ba consent form babuyeleke futhi kubatali ukuthi bana basayinele phinde msakathi ngidlulise ukuthi kubonga kakhulu kubothishela nabo principal betikolo ayebasibambisile kakhulu kulehlangothi lokugomisa abantwana ngoba ngiyo ama custodians in terms of accessing those kids and sibonge kakhulu ukuthi cha kubambisana nokusebenzisana nabo kuzahamba kahle kakhulu.
Yeah, uma nibeka 80,000 plus or minus I remember Stumo wachaza lo ukuthi nathatha i-database yetikolo telakangwane ekutheni banganani vele abantwana abangamantombazane. It's around that number up to 83,000 I believe. Do you have nyalo inombolo nje lenayo ekutheni senijobela abangakanani noma niseda kuhlanganisa kahle lokho emalanga sachubeka?
Okay, kwendakalako kwalelo hlabathi lelo vele wabeka kahle umlingano wami ukuthi ba around 83,000 in regard ukuthi bantwana laba in school laba bantombazana kule age bracket 9 to 14 njalo ekupheleni kwelanga inombolo diyangena ngoba nasigomisa abantwana asisebenzisi i-paper base uhulumeni usebenzisa indlela electronic usidlala ekupheleni kwelanga khona ukuthi ubone inombolo ihamba kanjani. Ngingasho nje nge-confidence lenkulu ukuthi nyalo we are sitting above 50% in terms of bantwana abavaccinated so kubuka kulamalanga lamathathu lalandzelako kuyabonakala ukuthi lelisasasa leselikhona ukugomisa abantwana kutawuqhubeka inombolo ekhulu kutawuthi kuphela le campaign sesiyawubuya lapha sesichaze lapha indesive ukuthi ingabe vele inombolo tethu ihambe tafika kuphi
kushothi nje mabomu sesingasho ukuthi over 40,000. I mean, yes,
over 40,000 kids have been vaccinated.
That's a great number. And I think lokunye lokuthokothisa ukuva lo ukuthi labantwana bakaphoceleleki lo ukuthi bawuthathe lo mjovo umntali asengakavumi. That's a very critical part ngoba ngiyakhumbula nje nanisa sensitizer nani vele nibafaka kakhulu batali ngoba ngibona bathathela abantwana tinqumo kanti ke batali ngicabana sitawukhumbula ukuthi they had concerns which you addressed by the way in terms of ku demystify ema myths la abe khona. And some of those concerns kungabe khona indlela nikubonile cishe kungathi kuyadiveta noma kungavela such a small number in terms of ukuthi bantwana ba react in a certain way emjoveni lokukhathatako kukhona indlela nikubonile?
Ngibonga kakhulu Musati useseyinhlanhla lenhle ukuthi njengoba besichazele ukuthi lo mjovo usafe kangakanani kubonke labantwana sabagomile kwanje kude sikubonile ngathi adverse event lebekhona kuba khona nje kuloko obuhlungu belisungulu lomfana ukuthi ujovile nawo lo ujova nomdala uyakufora obuhlungu lokho emva kwalokho umfana kuphelele ugomile ucedzile kuba ngilokho kuphinde futhi kula ukushido ukuthi kuphola mhlambe ema pocket wabatali labanye abafisa kwathi ukuthi khanda ukuthi umfana sifike esikolweni asikhanda umfana akamsayinele bese ubhala incwajana la ngaphansi le consent form noma sashithi ukuthi singamvaccinate athi please don't vaccinate my child bese uthi can you please kindly call me bese ubhala le nombolo yakhe bese nabafika ke balingani bami efieldini bafike bayifunze le consent form bamshayele leyo mdala asho lo mdala ukuthi hayi mina ngiunderstand ini lokho nabona ngichazele but ngicela ungichazele kahle ukhaza ukuthi umntana uyachazeleka uyaunderstand abomchoka balelo balokugoma bese uthi ayinikani lo mfana utawuta kusasa salisayinile bese ngilabo bantwana labo ukhaza ukuthi sizabaseleke sikhathi ukuthi seshomo phapha bona ukuthi umntali ke sochazelekile so ya understand somvumela lo mfana ukuthi aqhubeka goma.
Okay. No, I think that's a very important point. Ngamane ekutheni batali bakhona vele bevengathi bona abakachazeleki kahle. Seniyabanika itayela lithuba lokuthi nibangedelele grace period yalamalanga lawo. Cishe nje kumkhumbuta naku voter registration ekutheni labo bebangalithola ithuba lokunangiseba extendelwe. I think it's a great initiative. Ngiyafala ukuthi sibiyele kancane emuva and talking about the cancer burden in the country. I think sisabuka dona nizabadwa ukuthi kunebatali that have concerns still in terms of ukuthi ngeke ngimvumele umfana wami ngingachazele kahle. Ingcenye nangelo mdali lapha enhlangano nangelapha enzingeni uyabukela njalo ku Celebrate Fast Show. Kumpanje lesithombe ekutheni what is cancer burden evendla kangwane? HPV, in fact it's cervical cancer.
Cervical cancer.
Yeah.
Ngibonga kakhulu umsakathi kulo. I-burden ye cervical cancer eSwatini livela kangwane lihamba embili Africa yonke ngeburden cervical cancer. Lokhu bese kuhlomiswa ligogo lokuthi ukhanza ukuthi banifana labanabo 13 14 sebane confirmed cervical cancer. Kusho lo mbana leyo vele so kuthiwa imdlavuza lo masibeletho uqale wendvulele before ube ne cancer. So umfana sona 14 weminyaka noma 13 nawuthi uyapopona esibhedlela khanzakale ukuthi vele sona lo mdlavuza usho ukuthi akusevuleli sekuvele kukhona kube sekuyathusa ukuthi lona mfana kahle kwendekeni ngiko ke bese lihlelo la uhulumende bona ukuthi banifana batasilahlekela basesebancane wancona ukuthi ke kunqono vele bagome labantwana kutawa ukuthi babe protected from the HPV ekhuleni kwabo ngoba kugoma kwabo kutawa sekuthi emva kweminyaka nasesibuka leti nombolo tethu desibuka ukuthi ungabe cervical cancer njani sibhekile nje emva kweminyaka lethithe ukuthi nasibuka leti nombolo sikhanze ukuthi labantwana beminyaka labona 14 15 noma laba sibagomenyalo sokuthi batha basebana bo 25 20 something ufuna sale sibabede ama cancer cases la vele la khona ukuthi sesivele kukhona umfana lo below 25 lo namdlavuza umlomo wesibeletho so kulapho la khona live lifise kufika khona ngiko ke sigomisa abantwana nyalo ke labana leminyaka lemincane akusiko ukuthi ngoba bese kuba nalomcabango ebatalini ukuthi ugonyiswa abantwana ngoba sebayalala akusiko njalo labantwana labo bukete ukuthi kufuna bagomelo 9 na 14 kubute kuthiwa labantwana labo i-level of exposure ngalesilungu sithi ke kuba exposed to HPV the level yabo isese very minimal compared to umuntu lo above that age group so the vaccine works best kule age group leyo akusiki ukuthi suke sithi bantwana nasibagomisa sebayalala ngoba batala abantu ngoba mhlambe kuyabashiya khona lapho kepha case by case kuyendeka abatali njengoba ngichazele emsakathi ukuthi laba batali batawubuta bachazeleke bagcina ba-understanding kude lesingakuthathi serious etikore tempilo noma ungaba ngumunye ukhulume uthi kunjanjanyana we take our time and address that issue and number concern nangabe le concern yakho ayusona awujabuliseki siyathatha kunyanisela ukuthi sifike kwesichazele kahle ukuthi kahle lokugomisa kuhamba kanjani kubusita kuphi umfana lomncane.
Thank you for clarifying the point ukuthi it's a proactive approach. Ngiyabona nje ukuthi cishe kungifanele nekugoma kwemfana nakadalo ukuthi sim-immunize ukuthi lo mfana incane usete ukugula lokuthitha but should kungafika kufuna kum-attack kumkhanze ukuthi u-vaccinated u-protected from that. I think umtali kulelo point lelo uyacaciseleka ekutheni kumcwanga kanani umfana wakhe awuthathe nangu umjovo nawo ngiyafuna ukuthi sikhulume ngenzaba bema survival chances nase ikubambile le HPV ngoba niyaveta lokuthi kungathi yaphuda lokuvela but nase ikubambile mathuba ukuthi usurvive uphile ngathi aba minimals kungaba kusichazela kulelo hlangothi lolo.
Okay kuyashela ngemuntu ngibekise njengoba ngichazile ukuthi angithi leli gciwane lelibanga lomdlavuza wesibeletho le HPV ema HPV strains ehlukene above ngamabomu ngibekise nje above 100 kepha la ngalabanga mdlavuza umlomo wesibeletho mabili no 16 na 18 lokusho ukuthi ngiwo laba avelela ingodi lesibagomsela bona labantu nakozimhlaza nabafika bahlangana naloko kanjalo so i-survival in terms of nangabe so diagnosed ku-cervical cancer kudependa kule stage so diagnosed wekiso ngoba sima stages lang 4 then the survival rate is based on the stage of being diagnosed at kuyendeka ke khanza ukuthi bodzadzewethu basengafundiseki mhlambe basibahamba bawupopola esibhedlela bathi bathi uyathi kufune mhlambe sale senta lelinye licwalingo lokuthiwa i-biopsy sibuke vele ukuthi ingabe vele sokudeni lo mdlavuza la kulomlomo esibeletho lapho ke kanti ukuthi umuntu soyaconfirmeka on the first screening day ukuthi ke so vele uconfirmekile kubangelwa yini ngeke usibagcugcutela kakhulu bodzathu wethu nabosisi wethu nabo nesihlobo tethu ukuthi la boma ukuthi bakwenda umkhuba wabo lokupopola umdlavuzo womlomo esibeletho zathu sekuthi umdlavuzo womlomo esibeletho emsakati uyavikeleka uphinde futhi uyatreateka so kube sokuvisa abhlungu nangabe umuntu kuleli banga lekwendvulela lonke akaliboni sotholakala ngale vele sekuvele kukumdlavuza kanti nakusendulela msakati kuyakulula kakhulu nokuthi lo muntu athole lesito akhona futhi aqhubeke abe productive and
early detection is key.
Early detection is key.
Okay, let's talk about ama risk factors ngamane. Kunebantu asifanani, kunebantu bethola ukuthi sone ligciwane le-HIV lo munye nekugula thina. Engabe ama kanjani ama risk factors depending on states health yakho umuntu?
Lokusho ukuthi mhlambe in terms of susceptibility.
Yes.
So kuba kuqinisele ukuthi lo lokhanda ukuthi unawo vele ama comorbidities uba nayo inkinga uba susceptible kakhulu ukuthi mhlambe ayithole le cervical cancer. Ngiko lapha ema guidelines ahulumende ayasho ekuscreena ukuthi wonke umuntu lokutholakala khanda ukuthi u-HIV positive ufune abohlola njalo ngeminyaka ukuthi mhlambe lo mlomo umdlavuza wesibeletho usandvulela noma akendvuleli bese kuthi laba labede leligcwane HIV kuyakhuthateka ukuthi bahlole kanye emva kweminyaka lemibili.
Okay. No, I think ivakala kakhulu. And then wasikhuluma ngiyakhumbula nje nani ilonje nayivethe indzaba ukuthi le burden iphinze ibe economic. Ukusichazela ngekudula kwayo i-treatment ngoba cishe ngathi navethe kwabasobala ukuthi kuscreena it's free but nase ikubambile lento the treatment becomes very expensive. Usichazela nje lo
uteka yona sibili umsakathi le treatment part ngiyo le cost la eveni live uhulumende wakangwane sokusukumisile inhlelo etimbili ekutreata lo mdlavuza lokhona wesibelethwa neminye imidlavuza lesithi ngama chemotherapy units kunayinye lekhona lapha eMbambane le outpatient kunayinye futhi lekaManzini kuthiwa Manzini Hospital inpatient lapho khona kuyazama uhulumende uzama kakhulu ukuthi angathathi abantu inkumbi abaposele esikhwahlande ngoba kuyamdulela uhulumende asakwenda konke lokhu kukhona la fike khona mhlambe naye bese udinga ukuthi ahlangabedwe ngoba usede yonke le treatment continuum yalabantu abane cancer lokhantu sokufuneka iradiation le radiation sokufuneka lo muntu ngesimthathe ke interest fund ngolapho lo sokusidulela khona. Yes, but nonetheless in other cancers including cervical cancer when I initiate nje oncologist kusaqala chemotherapy ukhanda uyicala la vele lokho sekusitile ke uhulumende kakhulu kwehlisa intindleko ukuthi wonke umuntu otholakala mdlavuza akhanda ukuthi uyaphuma even labanye nje bangaba ofakazi ukuthi vele la veni sabawutholile lisito ngale ndlela ngathi inhlelo zomsebenzi uhulumende letimbili inyelela mbabane inyela kaManzini.
And lo mbuto lengifuna ukugcina ngawo ngcamane ngabeka kanjani baye abantu besabe lokubuda ngoba
awusabi ngani wena?
Mina angisabi mina. It's my job to hold everyone accountable. Uma ngabe soyithethe le vaccine noma soyindle treatment asikakhulu la treatment soyindle treatment is it possible for lento ukuthi reoccur?
It depends case on case.
So it's possible.
Kuhamba possible.
Okay.
Yes, but ke chances are very very minimal.
Okay.
Yes, but ubeksenwe etimbili the vaccine ne treatment. So kuhlukahlukene. Yes. So in terms of the vaccine naso umfana so fully vaccinated chances are very very low ukuthi wayithole cervical cancer close to zero. But in terms of the treatment because chemotherapy is an intensive exercise whereby ukuthi lo muntu basically naka undergo chemotherapy basically uyamsita kule cancer lemphethe, but in most cases kukhenzakala ukuthi khanda ukuthi nangabe seyikhanda ukuthi seyichubekile seyifike ezekenzile khanda ukuthi it needs extensive chemo then mhlawumbe radiation then khanda that body itself that fails because of certain other mhlawumbe organs asefailayo, but nonetheless the treatment part and the vaccination part all effectively and konke phinde futhi ayasave impilo emaswati.
Okay. I think as a closing remark, it's close to zero after vaccinating. I think that's the most important one. It further emphasizes the importance of vaccinate. I think the closing question, pap smear in terms of ensuring its safety, and emphasis on the importance of the procedure.
Pap smear is very, very safe. Even visual inspection as using acetic acid bese bana pap smear le VIA sisebenzisela abantu labasaya esikhatsini bese le pap smear sisebenzisela abantu labasangaya esikhatsini ngoba kunetinfo thithetedakala kwemfeni wesifazane kule minyaka leyo lehlukahlukene so yomibili letindlela totimbili letindlela tokuhlola mdlavuza noma sibeletho ti effective and futhi tonke tiyakwati ukuthi tikwazi ukunika lama results lofuna uwathola and you all seek treatment as required.
Dr. Dilego Maseko, thank you so much for your time. I think usichazele konke kwevakala. I think le jabulisa kakhulu nje kuva ukuthi uyayibeka ukuthi chances ukuthi kuthole le virus ukuthi ama chances aba close to zero after vaccinating. Ku-emphasize abumcwa kakhulu ukuthi ke banifana nibavumeleni batali ukuthi bawuthathe lo mjovo sitaba nabo ke evikini elitako kusipha nje isithombe njengoba batayo baqedza ngalesihlanu officially kujovisa abanifana ukuthi lihambe kanjani lihlelo otherwise kwenyalo sibahlola emarket nasibuya siyaqhubeka.
Lesi sikhathi lapho khona emaphoyisa agubha kuba khona kwawo eveni.
Kulapho kukhuthathwa khona sive ukuthi sike sihlale phansi sibuke bumcoka bemaphoyisa empilweni yabantu. Siphindze sibuke indlela letinsha tekuphepha kubo bonke bucala lobuveta sihloko. Sive sakangwane siyakhunjutwa ukuthi singawafaki emaphoyisa etinkulumeni tepolitiki ngoba liphoyisa alingeni futhi alingenelani nepolitiki. Emaphoyisa alwa nebucala netingoti temgwaco kuphela nje. Ingako emaphoyisa athi wonke umuntu eveni akahlale ngaphandle kwekunceneka ukuthi angahle ahlaselwe tilwane tasendle. Umuntu lohlala Eswatini akatiphilele atisebentele ngaphandle kwekwesaba kuhlaselwa kwemucwa nekucekelwa phansi kwempahla yakhe. Nawe wena lophathekile emaphoyisa athi digulele kahle uze uphile ngaphandle kwekuphatamiseka. Lokungenteka ngekuthi tidlova tingene tihlasele labo labakunakekelako kuleyo ndlu. Sive lesihlakaniphile nguleso lesiphakamisa kusebenta kwemaphoyisa nabo bonke labalwa nebucala. Ngale kwaloko timbungushe tiyawuwangenela emazinyane kungenamuntu ekhaya.
Lo mlayeto niulethelwa ngemaphoyisa embube abambisene nomsakato wetithombe.
Kwalo muhle siphindze sikwamukele ihlelweni kulesikhathi ke sithola i-traffic update sitawuvusela umntolo osavela khona ecingweni constable Fakutse sikuvusela umntolo ehlelweni ngabe nisebenze kanjani emigwaqweni uthini umbiko lo uphathele sive semaswati.
Ngikuvusele encumalo ngivusele naye umbukeli wemsakato imigwaqo elivela kaNgwane sesihlolile nanyalo ekseni imigwaqo leminengi iyahambeka kepha ke linani letimotolo nabo labahamba ngetinyawo seliqalile liyaphakama ikakhulukazi emadolobheni lamakhulu elive nakuyo imigwaqo lemikhulu sithi nje basashayela abende isiqiniseko ukuthi bashayela ngelitubane leliphansi noma ke ngelitubane lelifanele kuze ukuthi sigweme ukuthi kwenteke tingoti letimatima. emadolobha elive la kaNgwane omane tiba netemgwaco tiyasebenta tonke ngalokufanele kanti nemigwaco lengenela kuwo lamadolobha iyahambeka kude lokuthi inyabeto lo kungakanani lokungamenta ukuthi umshayeli angakhoni kusebenzisa umgwaco. Na usuka ekhasi edolobheni eMbabane uyakhona eSport ngaba nje kukhumbuta sona sive ukuthi umgwaco lapho solo uvaliwe kulandzela ukuthi uyakhiwa. Umgwaco lomkhulu osuka khona eheke nasengwenya uye khona kaManzini lokufaka ekhasi naye eMalakwane uyahambeka kude sikhinyabeto lesikhona nyalo ekuseni. Kanti ke lomnye umgwaco lesiuhlolile umgwaco losuka khona ke lehele uye eSiphofaneni naso tawungena nje khona edolobheni eSiphofaneni kunema speed humps la mashala kakhiwe lapho lesikhuthatha sona sive ukuthi nanyalo noma sekapendiwe lawo ma speed humps sive asichubeke sihambe ngelitubane leliphansi kuze ukuthi sigweme kwenteka kwato tingoti siyanaka no timphawu tibekiwe kepha ke sive senkosi siyanaka khona lapho ukuthi abatinaki kakhulu letimphawu letibekiwe solo litubane lisetulu kakhulu nabangena khona edolobheni Esiphofaneni sithi nje asikunake lokho sisasebenzisa wona umgwaco. Lomunye umgwaco lesiuhlolile ngumgwaco losuka kumhlaleni uye kaHlathi lapha kumehlwa bovu nawuqhamuka ngasemhlaleni nase ucedile le-dual carriage umgwaco lapho ugugubuliwe lokwenta ukuthi bashayeli nabasuka kulitiyela baye kula ukugugubuke khona babe nebulukhuni sithi nje asinakeni kakhulu khona lapho sisawusebenzisa lo mgwaco tingoti ke tiyenteka ngelanga khona lapho sithi nje asibambisaneni sisawusebenzisa loyo mgwaco. Lomunye ke umgwaco sisesekhona khona lapha eshiselweni umgwaco lomnye lohloliwe ngumgwaco losuka khona enhlangano ubheke khona esicunusa lo mgwaco loyo siyathi ukuthi nawo uyakhiwa lokukhona ke nyalo luthuli lunengi kakhulu khona lapho kwatise phela ukuthi lo mgwaco loyo uhanjwa ngiwo emaloli lamakhulu sithi nje bashayeli abakhanyise emalambu lamakhulu kuze ukuthi babonane kugwemeke kwenteka kwathi tingoti ngale kwaloko Mnguni naye umbukeli imigwaco elivela kaNgwane iyahambeka ngaphandle nje kwalesi senkishito tisikabeto ngaba kusisela yena umbukeli kusuku loluhle naloluphephile basetawusebenzisa yona imigwaco elivela kaNgwane.
Sibonga kakhulu mntolo lo mbiko loyo lo vakale kahle kakhulu kusichazela nje ukuthi bachube imoto lo bacaphela kakhulu emigwaqweni ucizelele kakhulu ke indzaba yemigwaqo lo sesiphofaneni ukuthi bachube imoto lo kufuna bacaphele kuleyo mgwaqo loyo sibahlola imakethe masibuya international news.
Eswatini Biggest Bride 2023 siyahla siyavungula mhla ka-8 July emavuso Trade Center kusukela nga-10 ekuseni kuyawulamla kusa ukhona Reese Madlisa Mharimbe Sbude Drum DJ Fantasy Mapi Madamza Lady Z Mr. Kangaroo Anglicali Testo Zulu D Linda Dlamini Ayacity DJ Kwani ling 100 emalangeni litikiti kuphela akhona ePizza Club and Grill wote nebhizinisi utothengisa imidlalo yebantwana ne-car spinning 2023 Eswatini Biggest Bride shaya manje ku-7684 7634 kuvakabandi uyilethelwa iphilani Maswati ibambisene nemsakato wakaNgwane.
right, just a minute after 7, let's take a look at our international news. Ukrainian officials said their air defenses downed 32 of 35 drones that were launched by Russia. The attack was part of a wider bombardment across Ukraine that extended as far as the Lviv region near Poland. The Russian strikes were seen as testing and exposing the gaps in Ukraine's air protection.
Russian forces launched a major overnight drone assault targeting all parts of Ukraine. In the west of the country, the residents of Lviv were woken up by explosions as drones hit critical infrastructure.
I'm in Lviv right now. It's insane with the Russian drones flying over my head. I hear the work of air defense and I hear explosions. Multiple drones for sure.
Located 70 kilometers from the border with Poland, until now Lviv had been relatively unaffected by Russian air raids. Around the capital too, the Ukrainian air defense forces intercepted explosive drones coming from different directions. In the past few days, the Ukrainian Air Defense Unit had been preparing for such a scenario, but they warn that the Air Force systems are still insufficient to protect the whole country.
Well, the most difficult part is an attack by various types of aerial equipment. When they arrive all at once, both Iranian-made Shaheds and cruise missiles fly by. That's the most difficult part. You need to act as quickly as possible.
In the eastern region of Sumy, sirens wailed for hours and several people were killed. 40 kilometers away, civilians were also injured in the town of Krasnopilia. The Ukrainian military administration says the raids were targeting telecommunications infrastructure and agricultural property. They come a day after President Zelensky's nightly address on the counteroffensive, which the Ukrainian army launched 2 weeks ago.
In some sectors, our forces are moving forward. In others, they are defending positions or resisting assaults and intensified attacks from the occupiers.
The Ukrainian General Staff claims their air defense unit shot down 28 of the 30 missiles launched by the Russian army.
United States and Canadian ships and planes searched for a submarine that went missing more than a day earlier off the coast of southeastern Canada while taking tourists to explore the wreckage of the Titanic. This was said by officials.
It's a race against time for U.S. and Canadian Coast Guards to find the 5 people on board a missing submarine. On Sunday, a submersible vessel operated by Ocean Gate Expeditions disappeared off the coast of southeastern Canada almost 2 hours after beginning a dive to explore the remains of the infamous Titanic. The U.S. Coast Guard said there was 1 pilot and 4 passengers on board and that the vessel had the capacity to be submerged for 96 hours. However, they added it was unclear whether it was still underwater or had surfaced and was unable to communicate.
The location of the search is approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod in a water depth of roughly 13,000 feet. It is a remote area and it is a challenge to conduct a search in that remote area. But we are deploying all available assets to make sure that we can locate the craft and rescue the people on board.
The U.S. and Canadian Coast Guards have deployed several aircrafts and ships to scour both the depths and the surface while reaching out to commercial vessels for help. Ocean Gate has been attempting deep diving missions since at least 2017 and successfully reached the Titanic wreck for the first time in 2021 and then again in 2022. Among the passengers believed to be on board the missing sub is British billionaire Hamish Harding, a businessman who posted on social media about joining the dive. In 1912, during its maiden voyage from England to New York, the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank, killing over 1,500 people. The wreckage, discovered in 1985, separated into 2 main pieces 400 miles off of Newfoundland, Canada, and has fascinated generations ever since.
In India, their health minister said the government will work to mitigate deaths from surging temperatures after reports of several fatalities caused by a severe heat wave this week. India's north and east have seen scorching temperatures of up to 46 degrees Celsius this week, with health authorities reporting a spate of heat stroke hospitalizations and deaths.
In the northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, those who venture outdoors do what they can to protect themselves from the scorching sun. Over the past several days, temperatures have soared, reaching more than 43 degrees Celsius. Almost 120 people have died from heat-related illnesses in this state alone. For some, it's become impossible to go outside.
It's been hot all morning. The temperatures have reached up to 43 degrees Celsius. The hot weather causes us to sweat and our skin becomes sticky. It's very humid and we can't even go out for walks in the morning. Now when we go outside at 7 a.m., it feels like it's already midday.
Hospitals have also become overwhelmed as families scramble to get treatment for elderly relatives.
The diseases that they already had have been aggravated because with old age they can't tolerate heat. That's what may have caused their deaths.
Making things worse, constant power outages. It means that air conditioners and fans in hospital wards have been unable to function, giving staff no choice but to fan patients with books. Climate experts say extreme temperatures like these are becoming more common in countries like India. They've urged the government to be better prepared for the consequences of heat waves.
Britain's parliament delivered another blow to the political career of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson when it endorsed a report that concluded that he deliberately lied over rule-breaking parties.
A near total humiliation for Boris Johnson. MPs in the House of Commons overwhelmingly backed a scathing report finding the former Prime Minister in contempt of Parliament.
The ayes to the right, 354. The noes to the left, 7. The ayes have it, the ayes have it. Allah!
The vote means Johnson loses his right to a pass granting him lifetime access to Parliament, a privilege usually bestowed on former leaders. The report found him guilty of deliberately lying about parties held in Downing Street at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when Britain was under a strict lockdown.
It is clear he knew the rules and guidance. As Prime Minister, he was telling the country about them nearly every day. He knew that there were gatherings. He was there.
Over half of MPs from Johnson's party either abstained or didn't show up to vote, including current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. But some, like former Prime Minister Theresa May, urged fellow Conservatives to vote against her successor.
Following an unsettling period in our political life, support for the report of the Privileges Committee will be a small but important step in restoring people's trust in members of this House and of Parliament.
Johnson has denounced the report as the final knife thrust in a protracted political assassination. After stepping down as Prime Minister last summer, he resigned from his role as MP earlier this month, ahead of the report's release. Johnson has already landed on his feet, returning to his editorialist roots as a columnist for conservative tabloid The Daily Mail.
French President Emmanuel Macron will hold talks in Paris with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. This as both sides seek to smooth a series of disputes that have frayed ties since she took the reins of Italy's government last year. Meloni leads Italy's most far-right coalition since World War II, is making her first visit to France since her election last year. The two leaders are expected to discuss the implementation of a major bilateral treaty as well as upcoming EU and NATO summits.
They've met several times in recent months, but always on the sidelines of international summits. This time, Italian leader Giorgia Meloni is on an official visit to the Élysée Palace. On the agenda, the application of a bilateral cooperation treaty between Paris and Rome signed by Meloni's predecessor and their joint support of Ukraine, emphasized by Emmanuel Macron.
I am pleased to announce, along with my Italian colleague Giorgia Meloni, that the French-Italian SAMPT air defense system is now deployed and operational in Ukraine, where it is protecting key installations and lives.
The visit is above all an attempt to repair the country's ties, frayed by a series of disagreements over immigration. The last run-in at the start of May saw Italy's foreign affairs minister cancel a visit to Paris after France's interior minister said Giorgia Meloni's government was incapable of resolving migration problems. The far-right Meloni made her stance clear just several weeks after coming to power, when in November she refused to allow a migrant ship carrying 230 people to dock in Italy. France accepted the ship, but retaliated by suspending plans to welcome 3,500 migrants from Italy. an attitude criticized at the time by Meloni, who's calling for a more even distribution of refugees throughout Europe.
Sono rimasta molto colpita dalla reazione.
I've been very struck by the French government's aggressive reaction. Since the start of this year, Italy has received on its national territory almost 90,000 migrants.
Quasi 90.000 migranti.
Earlier this month, European countries agreed on a strict reform of their asylum laws, including fines for countries that refuse to host asylum seekers.
As Ukrainians fight to retake Russian-occupied areas in their counter-offensive, there's a reclaimed Ukrainian village that is now laden with explosives that may take a decade or more to clear.
A few days ago, the owner of this home in the village of Kamyanka came back to clean up his garden and repair his house. We met Igor Bahoraz in a hospital in the nearest city, Izium, where he was being treated after losing a foot and lower leg. He had cleared about 20 small dragon-tooth mines from his garden with a shovel, then accidentally stepped on one, triggering an explosion.
We replanted the garden and everything was fine, but I wanted to clean up more areas beyond the garden. I took one wrong step and I hit a mine.
Bahoraz says he looked down to find that his foot was gone. Once a quaint and carefully manicured village, Kamyanka is now overgrown with bushes and grass. Almost every home here was destroyed in battles last fall as Ukraine reclaimed much of the region after more than 6 months of Russian occupation. Now only a dozen or so residents out of more than 1,100 remain, without electricity, gas, or running water.
We have nothing. The people who stayed here were given generators, but they need fuel and it's expensive.
On the outskirts of the village, demining experts clear pathways so that workers can eventually restore electricity and other infrastructure.
It will take at least 10 years, minimum, because life is ongoing. People are walking around. It is unreal.
Bahoraz says he knows 8 other people from the village who have lost limbs, and 2 who suffered from explosions near their eyes. He says he doubts he will live to see his village safe enough for his grandchildren to play in.
What can I say? It was my native air. I used to fish there and take trips into nature. I'm retired. I should be sitting with a fishing rod, but the war happened.
Ukraine is now fighting to reclaim other Russian-held areas as its spring counteroffensive moves into summer. Demining crews say thousands of mines and other dangerous explosives have been removed from this once-occupied region, but many more remain and pose a threat to all who venture there.
We come to Africa, where Senegal is preparing for its most important religious celebration of the year, called Tabaski. During this Muslim festival, it's customary to sacrifice a sheep. But for sheep farmers in particular, the build-up this year has been more turbulent than usual. That's after deadly clashes nationwide when opposition leader Ousmane Sonko was handed a 2-year prison sentence.
With just days to go until Tabaski, this small fishing port in Dakar has been transformed into a sheep pen. Ghulam is selling high-end breeds like Ladoum and Bali Balis. This prize specimen cost nearly €3,000. This year, though, there are fewer clients than normal.
After the political unrest, we have struggled to sell our sheep. During the same period last year, we had already sold 300 sheep. This year, people seem to be scared, but we hope that people will come out to buy eventually.
Even smaller, cheaper breeds like those at this stand are not getting sold. These sheep are kept by an organization of young men from the neighborhood who are counting on sales to make ends meet and to help out their families. Mawo is desperate for the political crisis gripping Senegal to draw to a close.
The money we earn from this is used to buy medicine, to prepare meals for big occasions, or to fix our wooden boats when they have issues. We want peace to return. Macky Sall should make concessions. We want Usman Sonko to make concessions too. The young people in this country need to calm down and realise that our future cannot be found in violence.
This happy customer just purchased a sheep for close to €300. He has just one message ahead of the upcoming festival.
Have a great Tabaski celebration with lots of calmness. See your friends and ask forgiveness from God.
Tabaski is the most celebrated religious occasion in Senegal and many other countries in West Africa.
Now in Kenya, Aden Abdullahi overcame many challenges growing up. Dadaab refugee camp, where he fled after declining a call to join the Al-Shabaab militant group in Somalia. Today he is a journalist working with the UNHCR-supported refugee community radio station, Radio Gaga.
In a shipping container at one of 3 refugee camps in northeastern Kenya, Aden Abdullahi is presenting the breakfast show on Radio Gargar. The 25-year-old Abdullahi says his journalism career is a dream come true. Forced into exile as a teenager after rejecting a call to join Al-Shabaab, Abdullahi says he aspired to tell the stories he has seen while living in the camp.
I have seen a lot of, media gaps in the Dadaab refugee camps. There is a lot of stories out there, but nobody, is covering the stories. And so that's why I tried, to bridge that gaps and, to become a voice of the voiceless.
Abdullahi is among the more than 600 refugee youths who have benefited from a technical vocational training program offered by the Norwegian Refugee Council in the camps.
Most youths, once they are able to complete primary education, high school, they have limited opportunity in terms of accessing tertiary education, more so the university. So as NRC, we opted to venture into providing technical skills targeting the youths. And in these skills, the skills that we provide are more of market-driven skills, where we do the market assessment, and then we look at what are the opportunities that are within the Garissa as a whole, and also within the Dadaab. And this is where we came up with different courses that we provide to youth, both girls and boys.
Congolese refugee Eli Hamuli, a digital journalist and aspiring TV producer, is also a beneficiary of the program.
Being a refugee, it doesn't limit one's ability. I believe that the ability that one is having, who is a Kenyan by nationality, and you as a refugee, the only difference that you have is only about the status, but about every other things, I believe that we are same.
On the International Day of the African Child, Aden Abdullahi covered a celebration event at the refugee camp. The 25-year-old, popularly referred to by his listeners as Mutile, meaning a great person in Somali, says his joy comes from highlighting stories about his community in the camps. Leila Halif, a Somali refugee and a listener of Gargar Radio, says the station has become a link between the refugee community and the humanitarian agencies operating in the camp.
I listen to the station to get all the news and information about what is happening in the camps, especially on activities of the humanitarian organizations operating here. It is the link between us and the organizations.
Kenya hosts more than 500,000 refugees and asylum seekers, mainly from Somalia and South Sudan. In 2021, the country passed a law seeking to promote social integration of refugees by allowing them to access employment opportunities. Trained refugees like Abdullahi hope the skills they have acquired will help open more doors of opportunity for them.
Turkey hosts more refugees than any other country in the world, including more than 3 million Syrians escaping the civil war. Newly re-elected Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is standing by his refugee policy of admitting millions of refugees, mainly Syrians, into Turkey and them allowing to stay despite growing public opposition.
Many Syrian refugees who fled Turkey lost more than their homes and their country.
18-year-old Semir, who only wanted to be identified by his first name, lost his parents and 4 siblings in the civil war. He lost his legs, but says he hopes to walk again.
They helped me a lot with everything. Praise be to God. Everything is fine. Praise be to God. We are training a little bit on the limbs, and with progress, they will change to a new prosthesis. I will start walking step by step.
The Istanbul Orthotic Prosthetic Center was set up by Turkey's Humanitarian Relief Foundation, as well as the International Doctors Association. It uses state-of-the-art technology under the supervision of Dr. Yashar Tatar.
Especially in Syria, there are a high number of amputees involving multiple limb loss. Burns caused by barrel bombs also posed major challenges for us. We have served around 2,045 amputees, and we have made approximately 4,000 prosthetic limbs. This is a huge number. Few centers in the world can make so many prostheses in such a short time.
February's deadly earthquakes in Turkey and Syria added to the center's work, as many people lost limbs in the disaster. Turkey hosts over 3 million Syrian refugees, along with large numbers of Iraqis and Afghans. Anti-refugee sentiment is growing, often reflected in graffiti.
Societal problems can arise from the arrival of a large number of refugees. Turkey's recent economic problems have added to this. On top of this, the election saw some politicians in particular bring up the issue of refugees.
During May's presidential elections, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's challengers vowed to return millions of Syrian refugees. Analysts say Erdogan's victory comes as a relief not only to refugees, but also to the European Union, which pays Turkey to host refugees.
The Europeans, probably they were relieved when Erdogan was re-elected, because that means, the refugee deal, which matters a lot for the EU leaders, will remain intact, will remain operational.
But Erdogan, possibly mindful of Turkish public unease over refugees, is now vowing to step up the building of homes in Syrian areas outside Damascus's control to facilitate the return of 1 million Syrians. How many will take that offer remains to be seen.
The United Nations says that among 8 million refugees who have fled the war in Ukraine, 90% are women and children, with martial law prohibiting most men from leaving the country. Many of Ukraine's women who go abroad have no choice but to take care of their families alone.
From the danger of becoming a victim of trafficking or sexual violence to mental health issues and complete frustration, Ukrainian refugee women are facing a long list of perils on their own battlefront away from the trenches.
Those things you do automatically at home, here it takes a half day or even days. From elementary things like cooking soup because you're in someone else's kitchen to global ones, how to go to a doctor or apply your children to a school.
Marina Mazurak is from Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region. She and her 2 children came to Warsaw last March. By chance, she found the foundation Ukrainian House and its women's club online.
I saw their event on Facebook, registered, and came. There was an informational meeting about the healthcare system, and here I saw confused women in tears, disoriented like me. I also met those who were ready to help.
Later, Mazurak became a coordinator of the women's club. She says even after more than a year abroad, many Ukrainian women still need to have these kinds of meetings to reassure them that they are not alone. Although the initial stress has gone, fatigue has built up.
During the first half of the year, since the war started, we survived because of adrenaline. Then I noticed my clients started to have a lot of psychosomatic disorders. Many had to take tranquilizers or stronger sedatives.
Another issue is that of separated families, says Moiseva. Many couples got divorced during this time. And then there is survivor's guilt.
I'd say there are 90% who feel it. I feel it in myself. My husband is in Ukraine and my mother is too. And I am here living in safety.
As the war drags on, the fear of death intensifies, especially so among women who are the only adults caring for their children in a foreign land.
God forbid I get sick. Sometimes I think if something happens to me, nobody would want my daughter. Who will help her?
Anna Zhukova is a refugee from the Kharkiv region. She went through 7 interviews while looking for a job in Warsaw. Then she met another refugee, Maria Golovata, who launched a small business with her younger sister selling handmade Ukrainian pierogi, dumplings. Maria Golovata used to be a glass painter in Ukraine. Making pierogi, she is happy too.
I have time to bring my children to kindergarten and pick them up. Jobs in factories or stores require shifts and schedules that make it challenging to have 3 children and work at the same time.
All women who spoke with VOA for this story said children are their best support and their biggest motivation to keep holding on.
Every year on June 20, we mark World Refugee Day, highlighting the plight of those who are either forced or choose to leave their homes due to conflict, persecution, or just to seek a better future. But not all of them are classified as refugees.
Every year, June 20 is dedicated to raising awareness of the situation of refugees throughout the world. World Refugee Day was first celebrated in 2001 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees that defined who a refugee is and set out the rights of individuals who are granted asylum and the responsibilities of nations that grant asylum. What is the difference between these terms and why are the distinctions important? Here's a quick rundown. Refugee. A refugee is someone who is forced to flee their home country due to fear of persecution because of race, religion, nationality, membership in particular social group or political opinion, according to the United Nations 1951 Refugee Convention. UNHCR says 117.2 million people will be forcibly displaced or stateless in 2023. Asylum seeker. Asylum seekers are essentially refugees, but their claim to refugee status hasn't been evaluated and they have not yet received any legal recognition or status. There were around 5.6 million people around the world waiting for a decision on their asylum claims as of June 2023, UNHCR said. Internally displaced people. An internally displaced person, or IDP, is a person who fled their home but has not crossed an international border to find sanctuary. Even if they fled for reasons similar to those affecting refugees, armed conflict, generalized violence, human rights violations, IDPs legally remain under the protection of their own government, even though that government might be the cause of their flight. There are 61.2 million internally displaced people globally as of June 2023, UNHCR said. Migrant. Migrant is an umbrella term for a person who moves away from their place of usual residence for any variety of reasons, but not necessarily because of a direct threat of persecution or death. They may be moving temporarily or permanently, legally or illegally. Though the terms refugee, internally displaced people, asylum seekers, and migrants may seem similar, those groups are protected in different ways. For example, the International Convention in 1951 outlined certain rights for people deemed refugees, whereas migrants have no such rights. Refugees are protected from being deported or returned to situations that might threaten their lives. They should be given access to social services and integrated into their new country's society. Migrants, on the other hand, are subject to a country's immigration laws and procedures and can be turned away or deported back to their homeland.
Now, on that story about World Refugee Day, we mark the end of our international news. We look at the weather forecast and go for an ad break.
ehlelweni lethi lithini libandla. Siyambonga uNkulunkulu ihlelo liphindze libuyele emoyeni.
Basically ngingathi nje empeleni yabona uNkulunkulu nakadala umhlaba including bantu.
Leti khathi leti tethenjisiwe ngofundza incwadi yaJohn chapter 16 verse number 33.
The way the gospel has been portrayed nayilethwa la kubantu yabo yende ukuthi abantu babe offended.
Sikholwa futhi ukuthi sidaphinde siba nabo evikini lelitako sikhulumisa yona le ndzaba lesikhuluma ngayo emsakatweni wakho Eswatini TV sibuko semaswati.
Ayijesuke kama lakho likhulu Jesuke
Asiphindze sinimukele siyakuvusela nawe losanza kuzivulela namhlanje ngoba kungilesithathu futhi bukadona dindzaba tetempilo besivedele ukuthi isidaba sikhulumisana na Health Promotion Officer Calvin Dlamini sibuka nje kakhulu la ngomkhuhlane sebukeka kwangathi sowanzile kakhulu abantu abaningi sebadikhanza banemkhuhlane lapha eveni ngathi labanye baye basebenzise ema flu shots banathi ama supplements labanye bastime labanye bendelo kona lokho akuzama nje ukuthi ivikela kuwo umkhuhlane kepha ke Calvin lapha emlangeni tasichazela abantu ukuthi ngabe vele yinto imvule singadenda ukuthi iphephisa ukuthi singawutholi lona mkhuhlane nokuva nje ukuthi ngabe vele mhlambe sikhathateke yini ngaleli zinga abamvula bathola ngawo lo mkhuhlane Nkosi asekuvusele siyabonga ukuthi ube nathi lo mhla ekseni ngicabanga ukuthi nani mhlambe niyadibona leti nombolo tebantu emitholampilo lasebathola ukuthi banemkhuhlane kancane sekuvela abantu etibhedlela badola shilo mkhuhlane ingabe vele mhlambe sikhathateke yini vele ngaleli dzinga nje bantu bathelelana ngawo lo mkhuhlane kulamalanga
asibonge singamvusela umbukeli mhlambe umuntu abengathi sisesikhatsini lapho khona vele umkhuhlane udaba khona kulesikhathi sasebusika siyagatsa ukuthi kube nemikhuhlane nyalo ke sibona ukuthi kuhle kuba nemimoyana lokuhusha kwemoya so now uhusha kumoya kunengi lokuthatha la ukulethela kusuke kumuntu lomunye kuya kulomunye umuntu lokusho ukuthi nelizinga lekuthelelana libese libasedulu ingake efiki iCovid bese yayo umkhuhlane siubale etigabeni letimbili bese yayisithi kunemkhuhlane lomncane kunemkhuhlane lomkhulu yafika ke COVID yona yangena vele kulesigaba semkhuhlane lomkhulu so nanyalo siyabona timpawu letinengi letikhomba ukuthi nasiphathwa ngumkhuhlane nyalo uvama kuba strong uvama kuba ngilota ukhanza ukuthi uthathe emalanga nyana lamatse lakho losolo ukhona kodwa ke besingasho ukuthi cha sisengakayipress ipanic button because cishe wonke lofikako anemkhuhlane simnikete imedication uyakhona ukuthi aphinza abuye abe ngilokahle but asika rule out lokwekuthi vele nakafika nesi abona kungathi usola iCovid utoyenda itest yeCovid kuze sitoba shokwe ukuthi luhlobo luni lomkhuhlane lolukuphethe
yeah yona le COVID ingabe vele mhlambe linani nje bamfula batholakala ukuthi banayo ikanjani simepi nje ngayona iCovid nje kungimanje la event
ngitawuphose ngithi cishe ngathi angithi ibambe lizinga lelithide kube bengasho njalo so la khona ama cases eCovid and vele sicabanga ukuthi nasibuka indlela tifo lithamba ngayo kungenteka ukhanze vele ukuthi sekuyawuhlala nje kukhona lokuthi ukhanze ukuthi lamhla siyamemedela babo 50 ukhanza nje sithamba kanjalo inombolo bo 20 bo 30 kusengakase kulamalanga kube bengasho njalo ukhanze set inombolo lesethi setulu lesethi spike so ukhanza nje ukuthi solo kubalwa lokho ukuthi bo 50 bo 30 20 bantu labatholakele bane COVID and ke mhlawumbe lesingathi nyalo kukahle mhlambe singasho ukuthi i vaccine singasho ukuthi bantu sebawadevelopile masocha against i-COVID. Lokhu kahle nyalo kuba ngiloko ukuthi vele cishe nje utestwa ale outpatient noma le OPD kusho ukuthi uyathambela ngetinyawo utawuphinda athathe i-treatment yakhe abuyele ekhaya. Cishe ke ngiloku sinika koloko ukuthi seyingena kuleli line nje lemikhuhlane yonke ukuthi sewungamane ulale phasi ngoba kuwe sekubekwe ngilokwehlukile, but otherwise uyakhona umuntu ukuthi alapheke achubeke endele yomisebenzi labekayenda ekhaya.
Yeah. So lo mkhuhlane lokhona nje kulamalanga enkosi ukubutela ukuthi ingabe vele mhlambe uhlasela abantu abadala kakhulu noma nabo bamfana yekhanza ukuthi udlangile kibo baningi bamfana leni babonako nabo laba vele emetfolampilo baphethwe ngomkhuhlane.
Kuphose kuyafanana. Kuphose kuyafanana, ukhona kulabadzala ukhona kulabancane. Mhlambe lokuyaye kube sekuba inkinga kulabancane ngiloko ukuthi hansi bavama bona kuhlala bayigroup ngoba basetikolweni esikhatsini lesinenge. So ukhanza ke ukuthi nakamunye la classini sekulula ukuthi kuyophela liviki athelele labang 4 5 6 kanye kulabadzala ukhanza ukuthi noma sikhona sisemisebentini kanye but ukhanza ukuthi kukhona lokusabasabana nje so like apheli le COVID la ngcondweni yethu ukuthi ayunemkhuhlane bani. So cishe sibona bonke labadzala labancane phose bakhona and cishe ukhanza ukuthi kubo bonke labancane labadzala kuyendeka lokho ukuthi ukhanze vele lo muntu ukuthi so uthethe emalanga lamathe solo analo mkhuhlane sesiyabona ukuthi kusho ukuthi yena bekathole inhlobo le strong anyana ngoba maningi lamagciwane labanga imikhuhlane, but kuwo onke lamaningi labanga imikhuhlane lokhu sijabulisa ngiloko ukuthi cishe onke ayalapheka ngale mithi lekhona evena akudzingi ukuthi mhlambe kuze kuyofunwa lokungekho evena.
Okay. Kubuta nje ngema symptoms lokuthi lama symptoms kulomkhuhlane nje lona lokhona kulamalanga anormal yini because that ukuthi ama symptoms nje flu leswati lajwayelekile ngiyo fever, chills, mhlambe leso throat nemvimbana. Ingabe ngidobona kanje ngipi yini lengayibona leta njengisa ukuthi hayi lomkhuhlane lo awusile lo vamile ngitiphi nje timpawu mhlambe lengadi caphela ukuthi leta ngenda ukuthi ngiphuthume ngemtholampilo.
Cishe bengingathi umkhuhlane lomncane ngilokuthi mhlawumbe uve kuvimba-vimbana but waze waqala ukukhwehlela waze weva ungathi uphelelwa ngemandla yaze ngoba inkinga yefiva awukhona lokumkalela lo muntu ngoba utathi wena hayi na ushisa kangaka ukhanze ukuthi le kunelihlobo nje lebantu lolu uyaye lukhona ukudicinisa ukuthi hayi no kusesekuncane lokho. So kuyaye kube lukhuni ke lokumkalela lo muntu ukuthi hayi naso ushisa kangaka nase ukhwehlela kangaka. So siyaye sithi ungamane uthi ngidawubuka nje ngisekhaya nangabe uva lokuvimba vimbana, but waze weva ukuthi sengiyakhwehlela waze weva lokuthi sengiphelelwa ngemandla ngiyatsinwa nangihambako kungcono lokuthi uthole lo sito khona kunganoqhubeka ngoba umkhuhlane la uhlupha khona umkhuhlane ngekwelisiko lawo uyaqala udiphelele nangaphandle kwemedication ungadiphelela, but la ufika ube inkinga khona ngiloko ukuthi ubese ukhanza ukuthi so uqhakelisa letinye tifo lo ukhanza ukuthi sengiyitokele letingabe seseti chubeka sikhathi lesitse la empilweni yakho. So ukhanza ukuthi ke sesitathi seku infected siyayesibeke ngekweukuthi kunemkhuhlane wasetulo upper respiratory kunemkhuhlane lower respiratory kusho ukuthi wona so ulephase emaphashini lo munye nasithi usetulo ulamphinjeni ulamakhaleni letitho temtimba nje letsetulo bese ke sekuba nalo lophase emaphashini. So ukhanza ukuthi ke naso ulephase emaphashini ke sewunga bese so ukuvusela nje nalokunye longakhanza ukuthi sekuyakuhlupha sengilapho khona ukukhanzana kwekuthi sesimnika nemuntu nemaphilisi la ngumjovo, otherwise umkhuhlane wona besingese kunike emaphilisi la ngumjovo, but ngaloko ukuthi so uphase emaphashini shothi sanga affecta betningi kuphefumula kwakho lokwa nalokwa sesithi kaya sikunike emaphilisi la ngumjovo kuze atokulekelela ukuthi kubede lokunye lokumathabela ngodi lokungavuswa ngilomkhuhlane.
Lase ngubonile nje ngokuthi ukuthi labanye abantu mhlambe nasebabona ukuthi sebaqala ama symptoms kuba nemkhuhlane lapha so throat mhlambe naloku uve emakhada kancane labanye khanze ukuthi basebenzisa ku steam without steam mhlambe bastime ngevix noma ke ama herbs abo noma baye gymini bayotivocavoca umtimba kuphephe kanganani lokho uyakhona kuphela umkhuhlane ngekusteama ngeVicks nange-exercise nje vocavoca umtimba?
Asibonge again phindze kutawudependa lokuthi immunity yakho njani ungakaphathwa ngilomkhuhlane, i-lifestyle yakho injani ungakaphathwa ngilomkhuhlane, bese kudependa ke mhlambe nekwekuthi uthole hlobo luni lwalomkhuhlane, ngilomncane ngilomkhulu. Bese ke sesibuya sithi ke yes bo Vicks, bo vitamin C, bo cold and flu mithi longayithola siyaye sithi ne over the counter, kusho ukuthi ungaye epharmacy uyothi nje ngicela ungithengisele i-cold and flu, ngiva kungathi ngiyavimbana, ngithengisele i-vitamin C, ngiva kungathi nginabo sore throat. Kukahle ungakusebenzisa bo lemon bayabasebenzisa abantu, bo honey, bo ginger bayasebenzisa abantu. Tindlu leti kahle leto singadibala maybe sithi first aid treatment. But ke siyaye sithi kumcoka kakhulu lokuthi isebenzisa nawe udadi lokuphila kwakho. Ngidawubekisa angeke usebenzise boma lemon kani unenkinga yema ulcers, kusho ukuthi lama lemon atawufika bange lama ulcers ukuthi akuhluphe kakhulu. So kumcoka ke lokho ukuthi ukwati udadi lokho ukuthi ngiphile kanjani, ngidawukhona kusebenzisa lokho kahle. Ngisebenzisa bo cold and flu kude lenye medication lebangitshela esibhedlela ukuthi iyaphambana nale cold and flu, ngidawukhona ke ukuthi ngichubeke kahle. Bese ke sesithi ke yebo lelizinga lalomkhuhlane lingenda kwekuthi liphele nangabe mhlambe bomncane ngibeke sansi bengivimbana. So iVicks esikhatsini lesiningi iyakhona lokuvula la etimphumulweni nalama ephinjeni, ukhanze ukuthi cha kukahle ke but ukhanze ukuthi kulokunye sekuya ngaleli zinga lemkhuhlane, nase uphethwe ngumkhuhlane sewutobhele kube bengasenzela ogamalela, siyaye bese sisakukhuthathi ukuthi ungaye ejimini kuleso sikhathi. Sikhuthata kwekuthi relaxa kuleso sikhathi, unathe manti kakhulu, kusho ukuthi njena ima fluids, ngaba matiya ngaba manti la warm nako konke, uze wende ngathi sowuba ngcono, because naso uye ejimini ngalo mkhuhlane uphethe mbamba. La mamasela akho adziniswe ngilomkhuhlane, phindze la mamasela akho sekayodziniswa ngile gym, kusho kwekuthi ke manje ku recover kwakho sekutaba slow kakhulu ngoba so uyawa stress la muscles. So kungcono ke lokuthi bese uyaphumula lawo malanga lamabili lamathathu, so ngaphindza uchubeke ne gym yakho.
Yeah, and then bese kuba nalaba nkosi ke laba natha concoction babhica timbo letiningi, ngibekise nje bafaka garlic, ginger, lemon, mhlambe bo turmeric, ingabe nako lokho kuyabasitani ukuthi bakhone ukuthi bawucethe lomkhuhlane bakunathe bakunathele nemandla shisakho.
Kusemindenini lesithi na ukuthethe natural, sengibekise lo garlic wakho nje umthethe lapha ngilo garlic without anything. Kusemndenini lesithi kuma boosters la health kubebe ngasho njalo, because nel orange yi booster, ma fruits ma boost. So nakungilama concoction la ngalama natural fruits and vegetables acishe akahle wona, ngiko nje ngitsite khona sekuyawumane kube ngilokwe ukuthi wena unalokunye kugula emtimbeni wakho lo, so ukhanza ukuthi ke sekuyaphikisana nayinye yaleti into lotifakile. Ngiko lokumcoka lokwe ukuthi ngingakade akhele konke lengingadakhela kona, ngidadi nje mine kwekuthi hayi mina ecishe ngide sifo lenginaso emtimbeni, mina ecishe ngihlushwa ama ulcers, mina ecishe nginashukela, mina ecishe nginani. Utobe sesoyadi ke ngoba batawukhona ukutshela esibhedlela ukuthi okay wena ke kufuna unciphise garlic wakho, wena ke ufuna unciphise in. So yadi ke noma ngakhala amakhongo okushini, hayi angilukhiphe mina luju, hayi mina ngiukhiphe garlic ngoba bathe esibhedlela mina kungilungela. But otherwise nangabe nje ngumuntu lo health lo desifo lesikhona angathi sebenzisela lawo tinto takhe ma herbs akhe lawathele emandini wabilisa wanatha, uyawukhanza kwekuthi cishe ku assistant nje umtimba. Kuvama kuba rich kakhulu ngala kubo vitamin C, lo khanza ke ukuthi ku rich kakhulu kona ngala ekuboosteni le defense yemtimba, kuze ukhanze ukuthi tifo kati khona ukungena kalula empilweni yaloyo muntu.
Okay, labanye ukhanza ukuthi inkosi basebenzisa ngaphambi nje ukuthi kucala eyona isizini yewinter, kwanza ukuthi batoya kuma pharmacies bayothola lokuthiwa ngema flu shots aba effective kanganani wona, yakusitani ukuthi vele ayakuvikela ukuthi ungakhona ukuthola lomkhuhlane.
Kuyakuvikela, kune role lekuyidlala kwemtimbeni wakho, because ku booster lo mtimba wakho ukuthi ukhone kulwa nemkhuhlane. Ngidawubekisa ngithi lokuthi kuphele ebusika ungakabe waba nemkhuhlane akusho ukuthi awukwazi walithwaya eligciwane lemkhuhlane, but ngilokho ukuthi umtimba wakho ukhonile lokulwa nalo langakuphathi langakugulisa. So ke labo ma flu shots labo ma vaccine against imikhuhlane ivama kuba khona kakhulu ngalanga kithi kahulumende ecishe kasikusebenzisa kuba kakhulu ngala private sector. So lokho kusilekelela nje lo mtimba ukuthi ukhone kuresponda better nakuqhamuka imikhuhlane, ukhone ke ukuthi ulwe nako ukhanze ukuthi akawuphathwa ngumkhuhlane. So kuyasebenza sisi.
Yeah. Kodwa nje kunalabanye labasasebenzisa indlela yakadzeni Nkosi yekucatheka. Ngicansi nasemakhaya nje basakusebenzisa amakhaya amaningi nje asakusebenzisa lokho ukuthi umfana makagula nakanemkhuhlane makanenyongo uyacatheka kusese effective yini vele letinsuku tamanje nisaku encourage anelidiko letempilo ukuthi batali bakwende noma nje umuntu omdala akwende mangabadi khanza agula.
Yeah, kulukhunyana kukhokha abantu endweni yabo. Ikakhulu kade nakatathu umuntu ngikusebenzisile ngaphila mina. Nabani ukusebenzisile waphila. But mhlambe lesingathi nje siyakusho ngetindzaba tekucatheka nabo kuhlanda. Kuba ngiloko ukuthi ukhanza ukuthi asikhona ukukhokha lele sifuna ukukhokha kona kodwa. Sikhokha lele sithi siyakhokha plus nalo lokungakafanele kuphume. Lo ukhanza ke ukuthi ke sengikoke lo kuyaye kusihluphe. Ikakhulu kade nasikhuluma ngebantwana nje ukuthi ukhanza ukuthi na umqatheka sekulula ukuthi bese sewusheka kakhulu sekuphuma tinswayile etinenge leso ukhanza ukuthi sediphinze tiyam affect na uhlandako uyaye ukhanze ukuthi besithi thina sikhokha inyongo yebo thina ngalesilumbi sithi ngule acid nje lesita kugaya kudla la siswini kuyendeka ke vele ibe yinenge leyo acid leyo. But ukhanza ke ukuthi le ndlela yethu yekuhlanda seyikhipha nalokunye lebesingakafisi ukuthi kuphume. So lesingakusho nje ngaba ngiloko ukuthi besingede sakhuthata ukuthi ngoba kukhalo bese siba ngumkhuba nje ukuthi hayi nani ayifuna ngiyohlanda vela ngitiva kahle ifuna ngiyohlanda ifuna ngicatheka ngitiva kahle. Uyabona lokuphose kube ngcono kukhokha kungcole emtimbeni wemuntu kuvama kuba ngilokushukumisa umtimba ngoba kona kukhona kahle lokuhluta lo lokufanele kuphume kushiye lo lokufanele kusale emtimbeni. So kungaba ngiloko ke lesingakhanza ukuthi singakhutsata ngako lokho ukuthi vele akube ngumkhuba wethu lokho ukuthi umtimba nje sihlale siwushukumisa uyavama ke kusisita kukhipha kungcola konke lokungaba khona emtimbeni.
Okay, no kuyavakala Nkosi. Sengifuna nje sale sikhuluma nyalo masinyana nganayo indzaba lesesiyivile nje leseyendeka etikolweni sekupethuka kwesifo se-mumps disease. Ingabe vele lesimo sikanjani la etikolweni yini sona lesifo lesi?
Mumps nguloku uvuvuka ngathi kwalati ihlathini la ngaphasi nje la kule lukona lemhlafuno lesithi ngesingisi it's the jaw. Ngilokuvuvuka kwalapho kunemadlala la khona lapho kule tindzawo leti mhlambe umuntu angathi ahlukile kunema tonsils ngoba ema tonsils wona kuvuvuka nje la ngephasi vele la kudala mphinjeni phinze wona na umkhamsisa lo muntu uyabona lekhathe emalakanyeni ukuthi vele kuvuvukile kuvalekile but ema mumps kona kula ngaphandle esikhathini lesinenge kuyavama kungabi ibhlungu kuvuvuke nje kube khona but kulesinye isikhathi futhi kuyaba ibhlungu lizinga lako likhona etikolweni kucale enhlana hoho ngoba nasikubuka silandzelela nje silitiko letempilo wakhanza ukuthi kubheduke eMpumalanga eSouth Africa kushothi ke kwangena ke through lo hoho ngoba anti siyadlelana kakhulu nabo so ke setikhona ke netikolo lesetingeneleke lethi sekungene nalinye tifunza kubomanzini kuboshiselweni kubolibombo sekukhona so ukhanza ke ukuthi kunenge lokuvuvuka lokukhona la ngekuvuvuka kwalawo madlala la kule mihlafuno le ikakhulu kati phinze nako kubile njengalomkhuhlane kona ke kuhamba kakhulu vele kubantwana kuyavama kakhulu kuba sebantwaneni phinze ke bese kuyasitakala ke ngeke vele sisesikolweni shothi ke sebanengelo tawukhanza sebavuvukile ke banema mumps.
So wona lama symptoms ngaphandle kwalokuvuvuka yini lamanye ama symptoms mhlambe batala bangawagatsa bamfaneni babo kukhona labanye lokunye labangagatsa before kuvele lokuvuvuka
golukhunyana ke kungakaveli lokuvuvuka but nje ukhanza ukuthi kuphose kungumndeni wemkhuhlane vele nakho so ukhanza ke ukuthi ikhona le fever ukhanze ukuthi mhlambe itaba khona ne headache mhlawumbe kulomunye bese ke ukhanze ukuthi ke sekungaba ne pain la but le pain ke vele yona ivama kuqala nasekukhona lokuvuvuka eziletinyama tifuqana so ukhanza ke ukuthi kuba nebhlungwana. Otherwise nakusete le timpawu uyahamba nje lo muntu ukhanze ethi akubonakala lutho and into lebesiba kabi ngiloko ukuthi kuleso sikhathi leso angakhona ukukuthelela noma le timpawu tisengakaveli la kuye.
Okay. Ingabe nje yini iliteko leliyendako mhlambe kuzama nje ku raise awareness ngaso lesifo leso njengoba soshito nje ukuthi sesibhedluke etikolweni letimbadlwana kamanzini nakuletinye tifundza yini nje labangayenda mhlambe bamphapha esikole namabothishela nhloko ucaphelisa bona abafundi.
Asibonge mhlambe emamams ahamba exactly njenge COVID lokho ukuthi sithi nakakhuluma lo muntu kuphuma lamathe akhe lama droplets bese wena uyawathinta so ukhanza ukuthi soyatheleleka ke so ke lesikhutsata lokho ukuthi futhi kukahle ke nyalo kusebusika kumakhata kungaba into lesiyithandzako lokuyibuyisa le mask ngoba le mask safike sayibona vele ukuthi iyasisita kule tifo temkhuhlane singayithandza kuyibuyisa singayikhutsata ngeke siyende umthetho liqiniso lelo ngoba umthetho wakho nguhulumende but itsine nje silitiko letempilo singakhutsata lokho ukuthi abakhuthathwe bantwana ukuthi aswembatheni lama mask khona kutosisita ukuthi singathelelana bese phinde singakhutsata lokho ukuthi lo mntwana lo nawo lama mums maybe singamnika lawo malanga lawo ekhaya kuze anti sonke sifo ezikuhamba emalanga infection rate yaso iyancipha bese ke sesingakhutsata naloko ukuthi vele kasibuyele sibakhuthathe lokugeza letandla kukahle nje netikolweni besakhe ema facility la ngeke asuswe ngoba wakho ngabo semende lokugezela tandla shothi kukhona asibakhuthathe labantwana lokugeza letandla sibakhuthathe labantwana lokuthi singakusherishi vele kudla kuleti khathi leti khona ke stoward kwekuthi noma ngaba nawo elulu but angeke akhona ukuthelela Calvin ngoba sesithethela uma precautions lawo sekungaba ke ukuthi losanawo lama mums stamlapha yena ngekuthi kuvela ini kuye nyalo mhlambe ngiphethwe inhloko mhlambe ngiyashisa mhlambe kubhlungu simnike lokho bese phinde sesikhuthatha indzaba yekunatha emanti kakhulu ema fluids singabe sesiyamkhuthata ke ukuthi akawathathe wona khona atosita le immune system ukuthi ibuye isebente ibengule kahle khanze kuthi ke sekaya clearish emva kwalokho
kwagcina nje ngosile treatment nje ithatha isikhathi esinganani umfundi angathi khanza away from school isikhathi esinganani
kutawuphindze kudepende nje ku immunity yakhe bantwana ke bavama kuba quick ngoba immunity yabo isese strong so bavama kuba quick bona ku responda etiguleni eminetifen kanze ukuthi masinyane soyaphila so lesikhathi lesikhathi kwekuthi uma ngabe bekungathiwa angahlala isikhathi lesithe bekungamane kubeliviki bekungaba isikhathi lesithe leso otherwise bantwana bona uyayukhanze ukuthi kulula kwabo kusheshe ba resolve etifen masinyane sekuyehla itolo ke ngoba emamam singilebe sithi mantshintshwane ngeSiswati so itolo ke bekuthiwa umemete esidulini but ngescience ke awusithi awuye esidulini asikunike nje kwebhlungu utawubuya ube kahle so I think nakube kuthe kungaba bo 5 days so tabe sesoyabuya soba kahle but ke kukhona lokunye kulomunye ngendzaba yeimmunity longakhanza ukuthi maybe sekungathatha longer than that so sekushiyana nje umuntu ngemuntu.
Okay, no, ngiyabala sibonga kakhulu Nkosi. Thank you so much. Mbukeli bese sixoxisana naye lapha Health Promotion Officer Calvin Dlamini asiniketa nje sithombe ngawo umkhuhlane hello so ngibukeka kwangathi wanzile kulamalanga lapha evena sichazela ukuthi sekubheduke nje sifo semantshintshwane imams disease etikolweni etifundzeni letithi delive asibahlolite market nasibuya sabe sobesahlelo nasifiso.
Right, 2 minutes before 8 lo mhla kusenzisa sifike emaphethelweni lehlelo lwethu lalomuhla Kusile breakfast. So I think Lulu singaphumi nje kungaba ukuthi si appreciate lona litiko letempilo nemisebenzi leli wendako kuhlangabezana sive ekuthweni ke singaphathwa ukugula lokukhona nje sikhulumisa indaba ye-HPV vaccine nyalo sithatha ukukhulumisa indaba yemkhuhlane lokhona ne-mumps disease naye Calvin Dlamini. I think into nje leti khona leti ihlupha kakhulu live in terms of ama burden kutetempilo cishe basukuma ngelisasa lisedulo.
Yeah, bayasebenza betempilo sibabonga nje kakhulu kepha nje nabo labakucelako ukuthi sibabambise sisiva. I think nje lavedile Calvin bomcoko ukuthi mawutisola ukuthi nemkhuhlane vele le mask vele asiyifakeni bangathi kule season lena ye winter vele sitawubuyela kiwo emamas.
I actually went to a pharmacy itolo ezulwini khona plaza ngithi ngalisho igama layo ngoba manengana lama pharmacy lapha kodwa nje lo muntu lebekasida lo sebenza lapha ekhaya is actually a doctor bekafake imask kwayena ngiyambuta ukuthi uthi protector from thina lenento sibe nemikhuhlane noma nguye lo nemikhuhlane uthi nguye ke lo phethwe ngumkhuhlane uprotector thina. So I think yabo they lead by example, which is something that we should definitely heed and now see adopt. Otherwise, thank you so much for staying with us lo mhla ehlelweni asibona nekusasa nisale kahle.